This is Learning with Coach History. Hey, this is the seventh and final lesson in progressivism. Today we'll talk about Wilson's new freedom. In this lesson, you'll learn how Woodrow Wilson managed to get some parts of his progressive platform passed, but had to give up others. The key terms and people: Clayton Antitrust Act, Federal Trade Commission, Federal Reserve System, Carrie Chapman Catt, and the 19th Amendment. Woodrow Wilson grew up in a religious family in the South. He started out as a lawyer and then became a professor, university president, and finally state governor. As the governor of New Jersey, he worked for progressive causes. As president, he pushed for a reform program called the New Freedom. Under Wilson, Congress passed two antitrust measures. The first was the Clayton Antitrust Act of 1914. This law made it more difficult for monopolies to form, said that the people who ran a company could be held personally responsible if the company violated the law, and ruled that labor unions and farm organizations were not to be considered trusts. This made strikes, peaceful picketing, and boycotts legal. The second antitrust measure was the Federal Trade Act of 1914, which set up the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC. This agency had the power to investigate businesses for the government and end unfair business practices. The FTC became very active during Wilson's administration. It issued nearly 400 orders telling companies to stop breaking the law. Wilson believed that high tariffs made big businesses more powerful. He supported the Underwood Tariff of 1913, which lowered tariffs for the first time since the Civil War. With less money coming in from tariffs, the government needed another source of money. It turned to an income tax. This tax on people's earnings was created by the 16th Amendment of the Constitution, which was ratified by the states in 1913. This tax gave the federal government a percentage of all workers' income and business profits. After reforming tariffs, Wilson turned his attention to the banking system. It was difficult for people far from the banking centers to obtain credit. The new Federal Reserve System solved this problem by dividing the country into 12 decentralized districts, each with a Federal Reserve Bank. This system controlled the money supply and made credit more easily available. Setting up the Federal Reserve was one of Wilson's most important reforms. During this time, women win suffrage. The suffrage movement gained strength for three reasons. Local suffrage organizations increased their activism with door-to-door campaigns to win support. Also, women used new strategies to build enthusiasm for the movement. For example, they adopted the more bold tactics of British suffragists, such as heckling government officials. In addition, Carrie Chapman Catt brought about the rebirth of the national suffrage movement as president of the NAWSA. It took World War I to bring women the vote. A great number of women became active in supporting the war effort by running committees, knitting socks for soldiers, and selling Liberty bonds to raise funds for the war. They thought they deserved the right to vote for all their efforts. At last, in 1919, Congress passed the 19th Amendment. This amendment, giving women the vote, was ratified by the states the next year. Like Roosevelt and Taft, Wilson backed away from civil rights. During the 1912 campaign, he won the support of the NAACP by promising to treat blacks equally. He also promised to speak out against lynching. Yet once he was president, Wilson opposed federal laws such as lynching. He felt that states and not the federal government had the right to make such laws. Another blow for those who wanted integration of blacks and whites was Wilson's appointment of his cabinet. Wilson chose cabinet members who extended segregation. Wilson's angry meeting with an African American delegation brought African Americans' feeling of betrayal to a head. World War I became a factor in dimming the reform spirit as legislators had less interest in reform.